Hello, and join us as we go live to Caracas, Venezuela, where the authority designated for peace dialogues of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, is offering statements at this hour. Let's listen.
That is going to enter in the pages of the international diplomacy and the international right as a show of barbarism that only can be compared to those racial laws of Umber in Germany, in which that nation segregated the whole population. And it is not only that, it is the proclamation issued in March 2025, which was an illegal, anachronical action that violates the UN Charter and that violates the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, that violates the UN Charter and all conventions signed among countries over the rights of migrants and the jobs of migrants, based on a law previous to all these conventions, previous to the existence of the international right, to the existence of diplomatic modern mechanism through the United Nations, a law that was issued in the 70s, which was used in 1812 at the time of the First World War and at the time of the Second World War, just to alienate people from Japan, Germany, or Italy. A law that besides supports a proclamation that it is not just more than criminalizing migration. If you are a migrant, you are a criminal, without any judgment, without any right to defense, without any element that allows migrants to go to a court and to be judged. And to be so, it comes to the level of barbarism as similar as those of third right of the racial segregation, very similar to those horrendous precedents of boosting slavery in the 16th and 17th century. So it comes to such a high level of barbarism that decrees the kidnapping of children, of 14-year-old children. Venezuelans, men and women, are being kidnapped without any kind of trial of defense of their elemental basic rights established by the UN Charter. So these children are being kidnapped, endorsed by this proclamation of on March 14th, 2025. They have been kidnapped, detained, isolated, segregated, even taken to other countries and even robbed, because those people and girls and boys that are being kidnapped, they have been they stole their cell phones, their vehicles, their accounts, so they expel them from their churches, from their jobs, from their schools, from their public places, and so they are taking no one knows where. So they left them kidnapped and ruined, and with all the testimonies that we have of all Venezuelan children we have repatriated, they are returned without nothing, without any belongings, though they took from them everything on they had on the transit to the United States. So this comes from a campaign which started a long time ago, and we will be referring to this later. And so they treat as animals people that are Venezuelans, that are good citizens, good workers, that come to their places of work so that they cannot be labeled as terrorists or criminals, but they are just victims of the economic blockade asked by Maria Corina Machado, Julio Borges, Leopoldo López, Juan Guaidó, and Carlos Paparoni. So we have the testimony recorded of Carlos Paparoni, who was celebrating the signature of this proclamation past Friday, March 14, and he was telling, as he is a miser, and so he said that thanks to him, there was signed the proclamation on March 14th. So thanks to you and all the criminals, Maria Corina Machado and Julio Borges. So at this time, they are kidnapping Venezuelans. They are being expelled of the United States of America without complying with any requirements established by conventions of the rights of migrants in the UN Charter and in the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. So it is an outrageous kidnapped. And so these Venezuelans went to other countries, finding an alternative to the consequences of the economic blockade, of the economic war that our people have been suffering from much earlier than 2009. So with Barack Obama, who was stating that we were posed a threat, all these sanctions were tightened up. And so if you alienate a people, a population, just by their citizenship, just by their nationality, or not for any condition of participating in any criminal action. So if what says the you could be kidnapped or even sold if you are older than 14 years old. And so they are just victims. And so we stayed here that we want them back, and we will do everything we can to take them back in the hands of our diplomacy. So we will use all bilateral relations, all bilateral mechanisms with all countries of the world that we have relations. So we will hire all institutionalities. We will speak even with the evil for these Venezuelans to return to their homeland, to their houses, to their homes, with the absolute safeguard of their citizens' rights, of their human rights as they are good citizens. Because, of course, how can we differentiate of those Dante's images in El Salvador with the ghetto in Warsaw? What's the difference between the barbarity expressed by the Mr. Bukele, saying that he had purchased hands with the work of that OSCIC. What's the difference that they consider as a criminal? If it is a Venezuelan or those laws of Germany of Wiener in the Holocaust, so they were deprived of their cars, of their houses, of their jewelry, and so they were thrown into a ghetto established for holding a dog's life. So what's the difference with the plane that landed in the early morning on Sunday in El Salvador? This is a far-right website. The monstrous laws that the German parliament approved to Hitler. So what's the difference of a proclamation that said that all Venezuelans older than 14 years can be expelled and thrown to whoever knows their luck be, their fate be? And so I am gonna try to say it calmly. How many times Maria Corina Machado have requested to apply sanctions on Venezuela? How many times Julio Jorge Borges asked for sanctions to Venezuela, as Venezuela, they labeled as Venezuela as an epidemic, and this was a campaign launched, orchestrated to mistreat, to attack Venezuelans. All those xenophobia campaigns in the latest 10 years emerge from that. If you are a Venezuelan woman in Peru, in Panama, you are a hooker. If you are a Venezuelan man in Chile, in Peru, in the United States of America, you are a criminal, and those are crimes. Those are crimes committed against a whole population, and so these cannot be labeled less than crimes against humanity. And so we will be denouncing it in all entities, in the United Nations, in CELAC, in all multilateral entities in which Venezuela participates. So we will let them know through our constitutional president to all countries of the world of this barbarism which can be compared with the darkest pages of humanity. Just to remind you, let's see a video in which these characters, Maria Corina Machado, Julio Borges, Carlos Paparoni, among others, they just request sanctions and more sanctions against Venezuela. And they describe as criminals and as an epidemics to all Venezuelans, and those they have the support of all media outlets for these kinds of things happen. Let's see the video, please. So, as you don't get out by the good ones, you will be we will be getting out at the bad ones. It is the foreign intervention is part of the opposition. Well, of course, it's the only way we have. So the conflicts through NATO. So we asked for sanctions, and this will come, and it is being built. Those sanctions of the European Union is that pressure is going to continue. Is an option that we have always stipulated.
Multilateral thinking of how to apply sanctions, because Maduro is linked with Lukashenko, is linked with Putin, is linked with the mullahs from Iran. So there is a transnational kleptocratic network that also needs to be targeted in an effective way. So that's what we are thinking in terms of re-proposing sanctions.
And I tell you as democratic leaders to continue advancing in sanctions against Venezuela. It is the correct decision, a due decision, and we have the support. So these are criminals against humanity, massive murderers that just to fulfill their political ambitions, they have subdued to a whole country to unprecedented sufferings. So they just now hide out by saying that he is a co-author. Of course not. These are just traits of stupidity of that mister, and we achieved. And what did you achieve? That Venezuela be treated like animals, like dogs, like they have been kidnapped and thrown to a horrible fate because they don't even know where they were taken. And so what do they different from Jewish who were just thrown to the trains without having any idea of they were going to the death? And so all they do with euphemism, but always boasting about all the economic sanctions against Venezuela. Julio Borges requested the United States more sanctions against Venezuela. Juan Guaidó said that there's a lack of acknowledgement, support, and sanctions against Venezuela. The Venezuelan opposition backs all economic sanctions against the country. Published by Nodal website. Opposition sent a letter to Biden to ask for sanctions. Maria Corina Machado asked for more sanctions for the Maduro government. Maria Corina Machado asked for more sanctions for the people to starve to death. Borges' crisis in Venezuela can become a contagious disease, and these are contagious parasites. The Borges and they just got into the oblivion of the history. And Julio Borges, Venezuela is a disease. And well, they just put the bed and serve the table as to happen for allowing these things to happen. And so how these things happened on Sunday, March 16th. Let's see the atrocious images, citizens, human beings taken and treated worse than animals. Only can be compared to the way in which our African grandparents were treated when they were sold as slaves. And certainly there are children of 14 years old. And what's happening in El Salvador with Venezuelans is not only but kidnappings. All Venezuelans taken there have not committed any crime, or at least it has not been demonstrated any crime in the United States, because they have been denied of such judicial process. They have been denied to speak to a judge, to say that I didn't do this or I didn't do that. So they are just landing on a plane. They just push them, kick them off, and without even knowing they are being taken to the kidnapping place to El Salvador with an economic target, as those European barbarians, French barbarians, they took African inhabitants to the Americas to sell them as slaves, and that's the only motivation they have. And he said, I don't say that. He said it. It is just a lie. The expression of an ill-minded mind. With time, Venezuelans in El Salvador, these actions merge with more actions with Ocio they will contribute to the sustainability of our penitentiary system that costs right now 200 million a year. And so they will be subdued to slave work to finance their repressive system. And in addition, he says, they are not kidnapped in El Salvador for committing a crime in El Salvador. They are just kidnapped in El Salvador because they are requested by the Salvadoran justice in the terms established in all the region, which is the state of right. And he said, the United States will pay a very low tariff for them, but a very high tariff for us, $6,000 per head. The United States is paying $6,000 per head to the new slavist who is charging for taking Venezuelans there. And he's gonna bleed them out, and he's gonna subdue them to slave work. So what's the difference between the slave work in El Salvador and the slave work in the concentration camp in Auschwitz? What crime did the Jewish commit? Did the communists commit? Did the Afro-descendants commit? Did the homosexuals commit that were just gathered in that concentration camp with the only crime of being Jewish, of being communist, homosexual, or black? What was their crime? So, besides subjecting them to the atrocious conditions, they were subjected to slave work, to build up train stations, to build up medicines as they were used as guinea pigs. So what's the difference with the slave work in Salvador? Under which judicial terms, under which umbrella of the international arena, Bukele can be the safeguard of all those kidnapped? So we announce that we will do everything at our scope, and that we won't stop, and we will go to each mechanism, each diplomatic, social, judicial mechanism for making these Venezuelans free, with these Venezuelans who, with the support of all these criminals, Julio Borges, Maria Corina Machado, and Marco Rubio, all of them supported the kidnapped, and we will come to all of them for them to return to their houses, to their homes, for them to hug their relatives, their wives, and they are. So let's see a video and let's see what they say about these victims. There's a new slavist named Bukele. Let's see the video. Well, everyone who is interested in this video, I am cousin of Lamarte and the friend of the relatives. Our information today is that our families were in need in the United States, and they delivered there at the United States, and so they were sent to El Salvador. And Mr. President, we are the families, and we ask you, we beg you to investigate all the cases. Not everyone belongs to the Tren de Aragua gang. My cousin does not belong to the Tren de Aragua. Maria Corina Machado, who knows well what's happening. All these Venezuelans were looking for a better future, and they find just a misery, because these are the representatives of the families. My son doesn't have any criminal record. He's a good citizen, a hard-working person. I am the mother and my son doesn't belong to any Tren de Aragua. I am the mother of Andy Javier Peros. My son went for a better future, and see what they did to him. They deceived him. They are good boys. And this is the wife of Ringo Rincon. And he went there for a better future, and he has a son. So as you see, these are good neighbors. They are just suffering for our family because we don't know anything of them. So the tears of those mothers, you owe them. Carlos Paparoni, Maria Corina Machado, Julio Borges, Leopoldo Lopez, Juan Guaidó. You owe them. Marco Rubio. Those tears of these mothers that saw their children depart for a better alternative due to the economic blockade we have been living through in Venezuela, and with our great efforts we have overcome it somehow. So we want to propose that the government, the Bolivarian government and President Nicolás Maduro issued a request for any Venezuelans travel to the United States of America. That's not a safe country right now. In the United States, there is no state of right in the most basic human rights that our migrants should have. Venezuela is a decent country, it's a democratic country with a state of right, with justice. So don't you see, Madam Machado, what are they doing? What are they doing with those people that were born in the same district as you? That they are being subjected to slavery, and there are thousands of testimonies. So we made a call. We urge to all Venezuelans that are right now in the United States of America that return to Venezuela. Here we will establish all mechanisms to come to normal life there, because you will be stolen your properties, your businesses, your cell phones. Likewise, come here, because you will protect it here. We will establish all mechanisms for you to come back to the pushing economy of Venezuela, to be able to come to your daily lives here, because it is not worthy to be subjected to this risk, because any of U.S. official can grab you, can get you in the plane, on the plane, and end it as a kidnapped slave in El Salvador. So return safely, and we will establish all mechanisms, all possible mechanisms, and we will send all planes to bring you home, to all, to the safeguard of your land, of your homeland, of your relatives, of your wife, grandmother. So it doesn't worth to be in a place where human beings are treated worse than animals. So come. As of today, we announced an intensive campaign of the mobilization of the people of Venezuela to denounce all these atrocities committed, and we announced that we won't rest till each of the Venezuelans that are in the United States of America and that want to come. So my recommendation, my advice is that you return to your homeland. All the wives, the husbands, the mothers, come here, because it doesn't worth the alleged American dream turning into a Salvadoran nightmare in an atrocious action only compared to those racial segregation laws of Adolf Hitler. One of the episodes, one of the most savage episodes of the history, those hundreds of Africans who were taken to the Americas to be slaves. So tomorrow we will be mobilized for supporting those relatives of those kidnapped, to express our indignation, to denounce and to raise our voices, and highlighting that all our migrants are not alone, because we are with them, and we won't rest till they come back, and we won't rest till we rescue the kidnapped in El Salvador. Tomorrow the Great March, and on Wednesday in the Bolivar Square of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, we will initiate a process of collection of signatures of all Venezuelans, regardless of your political position, regardless of your political position. Even if you are from the opposition or a Chavista, you are Venezuelan citizen. And so these signatures will serve to strengthen our position in all entities, in all courts, in all countries that we communicate, and we won't rest till the children kidnapped, the Venezuelans, the kidnapped Venezuelans in El Salvador, and the kidnapped and stolen children be returned to their homeland, to the homeland that is going to safeguard them and hug them. And so this Wednesday on the Bolivar Square, we will launch with the collection of signatures. As of today, we ask the families of migrants, of Venezuelan migrants, and we ask the Venezuelan migrants that on Instagram, the website Migrants in Migrants Ven, register to begin the process of safeguard and judicial representation to return to their homeland through the plan Go Back to the Homeland. And so right now we are just opening Comité de Defensa, the dot comité, Comité de Defensa Migrante, that Comité de Defensa Migrantes, that VEO. So register there, make your allegation, place your testimony, so to make a joint action with us and come, because that country doesn't deserve you. That country doesn't deserve the dignified people, the decent people, and the solidarity people that was born here in Venezuela. So return, please. So I'm going. Well, good afternoon, President. Well, how is this dialogue that was being held with President Maduro and the U.S. representatives? So those flights, there were some flights. Those flights were suspended because of this sent to the Venezuelans to the jails of Bukele. And on the other side, what can be the first international measures to be taken to avoid the suffering of the Venezuelans in the top prison of Bukele? Well, so they are not in prisons, they are being kidnapped by Nayib Bukele. And so we, through our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and through the Bolivarian government that rules the diplomatic relations of Venezuela, we will establish all mechanisms and Bukele. So the foreign minister will talk to everyone needed because to all those who must preserve the order and the international right, to those entities that are just boasting about the migrants' rights and that they participated in great businesses to subject our migrants to these mistreatments, which is very repulsive, because the target that their target is an economic one, because Julio Borges has been turning into a billionaire with sanctions, and Leopoldo Lopez, the main trader of the main trader of oil of all Silco companies is Leopoldo Lopez. Maria Corina Machado has been provided with a lot of money, and so Paparoni lives from this. Ask him what's his desk, who's his boss, and there is an obvious response: the USAID, the government of the United States of America. And so we call those entrepreneurs extorted from Carlos Paparones and Leopoldo Lopez, hundreds of entrepreneurs were extorted. Give me a quantity of money or you will be sanctioned. And so the stream of infamy of the repulsive action are Leopoldo López, Juan Guaidó, who directed the raid of coyotes to place all to bring those Venezuelans to the United States of America. And if the United States wanted to resolve the problem of migrants, begin to find all that network of coyotes and go against all those that hire course and established the routes to take Venezuelans to the United States. And so you have the evidence, present them. There's an order of President Maduro, and we will comply it. We will do everything in our hands for our compatriots return to their homes. We will send all planes everywhere to look for our sisters and brothers of Venezuela. For Venevisión, Andrés Díaz. How are you doing, doctor? Well, on Saturday, President Trump provided some data, and he highlighted that the Tren de Aragua was waging a war against the United States led by the Venezuelan government. And a week earlier, he requested to apply the organic law of Simón Bolívar. Well, you know, as I know, that the Tren de Aragua is false. Of course, that indeed there was a criminal group named Tren de Aragua, and all those criminal groups, Tren de Aragua, El Huiletsi, El Coqui, all of them received money from the U.S. aid. For the United States government, no. All received money from the opposition to generate chaos, violence, death in Venezuela, and we monitored all of them. From the first criminal groups we dismantled in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and we did it with all our energy of a decent state, was the named Tren de Aragua. All the rest are lies and false. You know, Andres, they are doing it to kidnap people who were born in your same country. They are doing for kidnapping Venezuelans, to steal from Venezuelans. Those children, those 14-year-old children, you maybe have brothers. It is just so. So it is nonsense that all Venezuelans are from the Tren de Aragua, and a 14-year-old boy can be kidnapped, robbed, and all their properties, and then sent to El Salvador. It is just a falsehood, an evil excuse. So, do you know in which the Nuremberg laws were based? In the racial purity and in the preservation of the German race. And there was pseudo-science support. Those were lies. They were as human beings as those Germans who led them to death, with the same heart, with two lungs and same brain. And it is similar of what's happening here. They can mount all the excuses, but it is a lousy kidnapped. It is a crime against humanity, and we will come to the international entities, because this is a crime against humanity, because what they are committing against Venezuelans and against all these Venezuelans migrants in the United States of America, it is a crime against humanity, and we will denounce it in all the entities. To finish, Mariana Marta for VTV. Seeing the viral images that have been disseminated on all social media, these opposition who were requesting sanctions and invasion, there were a silence, a pleasing silence. However, Maria Corina Machado, in different speeches, she said that her priority were the migrants, and that she respected the decisions of every country with it. And so, finally, what's the message that you would send to the youth and to all the families that were that they had the children kidnapped? Well, your first question, it is a resounding silence. I don't know what you will do to hide out that silence, because it is the silence of the complicit. It is the silence of the lackeys. They are lackeys of the United States of America. It is the silence of the complicit, because that's what they requested, and that Madam Maria Corina Machado is confessing her crime against humanity, because when she said, I respect what other country does, it means that if any foreign country decides to kill Venezuelans, she's gonna respect it. And if another country kidnaps Venezuelans, as Nayib Bukele is doing, she respects it. So that's a confession. She respects that Nayib Bukele kicks off young Venezuelans. She respects that 14-year-old boys being kidnapped, and those were her message. And so I don't know how media outlets hide out these testimonies, because Venezuelans were subjected there on Guantanamo Bay, and we rescued them. And that's the message that President Nicolás Maduro sent to you all. We will recover them. We will rescue them, because we won't rest like we recover those in the Guantanamo Bay. We will recover those in El Salvador. And to the mothers and fathers and grandmothers of Venezuela, bring your sons and daughters. And to the Venezuelan migrants, we say, come to your country. We will put at your service all mechanism for you to return to the full life that we enjoy in Venezuela.
to Dr. Jorge Rodriguez as he condemned the criminalization of migrants and denounced how women and children are being kidnapped and mistreated by foreign immigration authorities with no warranties for their human rights and for the sole reason of being migrants. This is happening amid the anti-migrants campaign carried out by the U.S. and allied governments like that of El Salvador. Rodriguez mentioned that all of them are victims of the economic warfare imposed on the country and promoted by the extreme right wing of the country. In this context, Rodriguez informed Venezuela will apply to international mechanisms to guarantee the safe return of Venezuelans to their country in a dignified manner. This is all for the moment, but stay tuned with teleSUR for more information on these remarks in upcoming news briefs.